I stare down my manipulative sister across the cold, scarred conference table as we battle for control of our family's legacy. Every word laden with the betrayal of blood and the weight of impossible choices. In that explosive, heart-pounding moment, fueled by raw anger and desperate resolve, I commit to the one irrevocable act that shatters our tarnished reputation and sets our fates on an irreversible collision course. Chapter 1. Veiled Beginnings. The late afternoon light spilled softly through the tall windows of the ancestral living room, casting long shadows that danced over bookcases and relics of a once glorious family history. In that quiet menace of shifting light and dark, Amelia sat perched on the edge of an old velvet settee, her heart a tangle of conflicted sentiments. Today's family gathering was more than a mere meeting. It was an unveiling of menacing truths and carefully guarded secrets, all set against the backdrop of the impending division of the vast family estate. Even before any words were spoken, her shoulders bore the weight of a precocious awareness. Each smooth surface, every delicate antique, served as a reminder of the heavy legacy she both cherished and resented. With a mind forever caught in the liminal space between trust and suspicion, Amelia braced herself for the day's proceedings. She found herself teetering on the edge of reluctance and hope, as if driven by some instinct to piece together the fragments of her crumbling family bonds. The chatter among the gathered relatives was an undercurrent of tension, half politeness, half barely concealed rivalry. But it was her own family, and especially her sister Elena, who kept her gaze fixed in a state of hushed alert. Elena exuded a controlled charm that masked a cunning intellect, and Amelia had long suspected that underneath that flawless veneer lay secrets and manipulations as carefully cultivated as the ornate lace on her dress. Elena's slow smile, far too knowing and calculated, hinted at layers of intention yet to be uncovered. As discussions began in polite murmurs about the partitioning of the estate, a mosaic of profits, properties, and painful memories, the air seemed to crackle with unspoken terms. Amelia listened intently to each carefully crafted statement, each nonchalant comment tossed like a stone into a placid pond, creating ripples of suspicion and anxiety. The conversation wound its way around topics of legacy and responsibility, but soon it became evident that the division was a guise for deeper, more personal connotations between siblings and kin. Amelia's internal monologue churned with a mix of loyalty, bitterness, and a raw yearning for truth. In quiet moments, the echo of Elena's laughter mingled dangerously with silent recollections, a smile that once conveyed affection, now appearing as a siren call to something perilously seductive. It was in these charged pauses, when words were suspended midway between heartbeats, that Amelia became painfully conscious of the undercurrents of forbidden familiarity. A fleeting, accidental touch, a hand brushed against hers as Elena passed a document, had ignited a spark of confusing warmth that belied the cold pragmatism of familial duty. The brush of their skin was as unexpected as a stray ember in a darkened room, leaving a trail of unsettled desire that confused and betrayed her own longing for closeness, even as she resented the means through which it was delivered. That small moment, quick and inconspicuous, was like a whispered secret between them, one that narrated a silent story of intimacy marred by a history of manipulation. Still, history had taught her well. Love could be as dangerous as a well-aimed lie, capable of leaving scars much deeper than any overt betrayal. Her fingers traced the delicate embroidery on her sleeve, almost subconsciously, a subtle act of seeking solace in physical reassurance, while her thoughts roiled like the turbulent sea. The meeting proceeded, and as more relatives began to speak of fairness and tradition, the air turned taut with hints of earlier betrayals. Each proposal about asset division was laced with implications. The vast, sprawling family estate was not just about land and money, but also about legacy, a tapestry woven with pride, pain, and the inescapable pull of blood ties. Every word Elena uttered was carefully measured, her tone dripping with a deceptive sweetness that belied calculative machinations. Amelia's guarded gaze watched as Elena's words, though soft, carried a rhythm of seduction mixed with threat, a subtle reminder that nothing in their family was as simple as love or loyalty. Inside, Amelia's thoughts scattered between memories of a once innocent affection for Elena and the hardened suspicion of a partner in a dangerous game. Their shared past was riddled with unspoken moments that, although cloaked in friendship, hinted at something far more complex. A forbidden dance of connectivity and betrayal played silently between them. In those moments, as Elena's soft hand lingered longer than necessary near hers, Amelia's pulse quickened. Confusing sensations of desire, guilt, and anguish collided, making her question whether the connection she once cherished was in fact a trap. That single fleeting contact had thawed something long frozen within her, challenging her every conviction with the bitter irony of affection entangled in manipulation. The family meeting's atmosphere gradually shifted from formal placidity to a simmering cauldron of suppressed resentments and barely concealed ambitions. As discussions wove through proposals and counter-proposals, Amelia found herself increasingly isolated in her own introspection. The stage set by the division of the assets was more than a procedural necessity. It was a prelude to an impending storm. Every discreet glance and every seemingly trivial comment by Elena served as signposts, beckoning toward turbulent times ahead. It was as though the estate itself, with its shadowy corridors and creaking floors, was whispering secrets of old wounds and future betrayals. Amelia's state of inner conflict was palpable. She felt imprisoned by the duality of her emotions, a desire to cling to the remnants of a love that had once been pure, and an equally burning need to shield herself from the webs of deceit that had long permeated her family. The hallowed halls that had nurtured their youth now bore witness to a sharper, more ruthless reality. With every passing moment, the stakes grew higher, the past and present intertwining in a tapestry of pain and longing. In a brief pause as the meeting adjourned for refreshments, Amelia retreated momentarily to a quiet alcove near a window. She watched as Elena moved with an almost imperceptible grace among the attendants, her laughter mocking the heaviness of the moment. It was then that Amelia allowed herself to breathe deeply, trying to reconcile the myriad fragments of her thoughts. The tactile memory of skin against skin lingered like a ghost, an ambiguous reminder that sometimes the heart defied the clarity of the mind. In that sliver of time, Amelia resolved to observe more closely, to document each subtle act of manipulation, and to brace herself for the inevitable storm that was set to reshape not only the family's fortunes but her very identity. As the murmur of distant debates resumed, Amelia felt the beginnings of a slow, yet determined clarity echoing within her. The family estate was soon to be divided, yet the most crucial partition was one that lay within her own heart, a reckoning between the allure of forbidden intimacy and the cold reality of blood-bound betrayal. The seemingly innocuous touch, the half-smile, the carefully curated words, all were threads in a complex web that promised to unravel in due time. In that moment of veiled beginnings, where the past met a murky future and the familiar mask of family honor began to crumble, Amelia knew one thing for certain. To reclaim her truth, she would have to embrace the shadows of her own making. And as dusk turned to twilight over the estate, the first hints that something irrevocable was unfolding filled the air. A promise that the tangled story of trust, deceit, and unexpected passion was only just beginning. Chapter 2. The Family Meeting of Lies. The mahogany table gleamed under the harsh conference room lights, its surface scarred by years of secrets. Today those hidden truths would erupt, shattering the family's civility. We gathered to divide assets, but tension and resentment crackled in the air, exposing long-buried lies. I sat at the table's end, feeling both anxious and hopeful. My sister, always enigmatic and secretive, watched me intensely. Her charm masked her true intentions, and today her facade began to crumble. As the meeting progressed from polite chatter to asset distribution, accusations flew. Our usually quiet cousin recounted past grievances, thickening the atmosphere with each revelation. My sister scanned the documents, her mind elsewhere. She made veiled comments hinting at old betrayals. When a secret financial arrangement was mentioned, her calculating smile betrayed her true motives. Her voice, sweet yet threatening, challenged the established order, accusing past loyalists of self-interest. Silence enveloped the room as she crafted a narrative painting herself as both savior and disruptor. Attempts to remind everyone of our familial duty were drowned by accusations. My stomach knotted as her plan became clear. A scheme to dismantle our family's foundation. How could I have been so blind? The sister I adored was willing to sacrifice family ties for self-gain. Tension peaked when she crossed from hostility to intimacy, reaching for my hand. Her lips met mine in a forbidden kiss, a shocking blend of declaration and betrayal. The room fell silent, and my mind spun with the realization that the sister I loved was not who I believed. The kiss, a calculated move in her dangerous game, blurred all boundaries. Outrage murmured around the table, alliances splintering. In that kiss, love and treachery collided, redefining my world. The woman I trusted was orchestrating our downfall. Voices rose in heated debate, revealing the depth of deception. The meeting was no longer about assets, but severing family bonds poisoned by deceit. That charged moment altered our lives irrevocably. Our past of joyful memories was now a scar of lies and betrayal. As the meeting ended in tense silence, I grappled with my conflicted emotions. The kiss, a mix of passion and betrayal, haunted me, reshaping the fragile lines between love and treachery. My sister's intentions had set in motion events that would forever change our lives. Chapter 3. Reputation in Ruins. The day broke with an uneasy quiet that belied the storm brewing beneath the surface of the city. In the cool light of dawn, the protagonist, whom we shall call Elena, watched with trembling disbelief as the cascade of public exposés began to unravel the carefully guarded secrets of her family. Once a name synonymous with power and respect, her lineage now lay in tatters, besieged by merciless attacks from both anonymous online sources and prominent evening news anchors. Every headline, every whispered rumor, seemed designed to torment her, leaving her to grapple with guilt, betrayal, and the stark realization that the delicate balance of her life was collapsing around her. Amid this raging hurricane, Elena's heart pounded with an agonizing blend of sorrow and fury as she realized that the catalyst of these destructive events was none other than the man she had come to trust, her forbidden lover, Adrian. Their secret romance had always been an intoxicating dance on the edge of danger, a magnetic pull that both invigorated and suffocated her. But now, as evidence of his involvement in stoking the scandal emerged, Elena found herself caught between the remnants of a love that had once promised sanctuary and a bitter taste of betrayal that now poisoned every tender memory. In the midst of public disgrace, the family's internal struggles magnified. The manipulative shadow of Elena's own sister, Vivienne, grew ever darker and bolder. Vivienne, with her cunning mind and razor-sharp tongue, had orchestrated a series of calculated moves that ensured the family's missteps were displayed for all to see. In bold public statements and carefully crafted social media posts, Vivienne exploited every morsel of scandal, twisting facts and stoking suspicion. Her actions were no longer whispered insinuations, but blatant assaults on the family's honor. She paraded her newfound power with cold precision, and her vindictive triumph was a daily reminder to Elena of her own complicity in events spiraling out of control. One cold evening, after a day punctuated by relentless media scrutiny and whispered condemnations from former allies, Elena found herself standing in the narrow corridor of the old family estate. The air was heavy with regret and the bitter aftertaste of betrayal. She was unsure of which step would lead her to forgiveness or even to solace. This was when Adrian appeared, a solitary figure emerging from the shadows of the ancient archway leading to the drawing room. His eyes, once filled with passion and promises of an untamed future, now shimmered with a guarded sadness that mirrored her own torment. Their eyes met, and in that heart-wrenching moment, Elena could feel the magnetic force of their forbidden connection, a poison that was as alluring as it was destructive. Wordlessly, they retreated into one of the private parlors, a room that had once echoed with laughter and tender conversations, but now seemed a courtroom for their past transgressions and future uncertainties. The room held traces of shared memories, the worn leather sofa, the faded portrait of happier times, and even the gentle creak of the wooden floorboards as if mourning the loss of innocence. With biting honesty, Elena's voice broke the strained silence. "Why, Adrian?" she demanded, her tone quivering with equal measures of anger and sorrow. "How could you let this happen? How could you fan these flames when all I ever wanted was to find protection in you?" Adrian's response was a hushed whisper, fraught with regret and conflict. "Elena, I never intended to destroy what we have, but the power I sought was too intoxicating. I thought I could keep the scandal contained, to use it as leverage in a battle that I believed was already lost for us. I never imagined it would consume us all so utterly." His words, though soft, cut through her like shards of ice. The love they shared, once a haven amid turmoil, now lay entwined with guilt and betrayal. As the truth of his betrayal settled between them, the room seemed to shrink under the weight of all that had been lost. The confrontation was raw and unyielding, each confession exposing another layer of hurt. Elena's loud expressions of pain reverberated against the ancient walls. "I trusted you, Adrian, I trusted us. And now I see that the flame that once warmed me now burns everything in its path. Your choices have shattered everything. Our love, my faith, and even a family that I thought was built on Herculean bonds of loyalty." Her voice trembled as she recalled how, once, even in their darkest hours, their secret liaisons promised escape and boundless passion. But now every whispered memory was tainted, a reminder of the high cost of their forbidden intimacy. Beyond the immediate pain of betrayal lay another overwhelming grief, the unraveling of the family's legacy, a tapestry woven over generations now splintering at the seams. The relentless attacks, both public and private, had become a gnawing presence in every conversation and every glance in the crowded halls of power. Each scathing critique and every call out from influential voices in society compounded Elena's internal devastation. Over dinner one evening, when the family was gathered in an attempt to reclaim dignity in the face of relentless defamation, every clink of silverware and every hushed exchange was a bitter reminder of the cost of secrets. Amidst these trials, the manipulative machinations of her sister Vivian surfaced once more as she savored every snide remark and every hint of superiority, her eyes gleaming with self-satisfied cruelty. Yet, in the heart of this chaos, moments of tender recollection flickered like brief, defiant embers against the dark night of despair. Elena found herself recalling soft summer nights when whispers of the ocean and the pulse of the city seemed to echo the heartbeats of their secret rendezvous with Adrian, a time when love was a promise of renewal, not destruction. Those memories, though now marred by bitter reality, stirred a residual affection that threatened to fracture her resolve further. The warmth of a touch, the softness of a glance, these were the relics of an intimacy that had ultimately led her down this treacherous path. In a final act of emotional desperation, Elena excused herself from a family gathering, retreating to an overgrown garden behind the estate. There, under the wan glow of twilight, she allowed herself the vulnerability of tears that traced the map of her shattered trust. The cool earth beneath her feet felt like a grounding force, a solemn reminder that, even amidst ruin, nature bore scars yet blossomed again. With every tear, she forged a painful connection between the woman who had loved fiercely and the one who now stood amid the ruins of her reputation and her heart. As the chapter closed on that fraught evening, a deep, echoing question lingered in Elena's mind. Could she ever reclaim what had been destroyed? The tumult of public and private betrayals had left her at a crossroads between the remnants of a love that was once pure and the bitter necessity of self-preservation. With her family's legacy in ruins, and her own identity splintered by betrayal and guilt, Elena faced a future where every step would demand not just strength, but the slow, arduous healing of the wounds inflicted by those once closest to her. And as the last light of day faded, the complexities of her choices hung in the quiet darkness, a precarious balance between the tender allure of forbidden love and the uncompromising demands of redemption. Chapter 4. Aftermath and Reckoning. The wind spoke in low, regretful whispers through the open windows of the once stately hall, carrying away fragments of shattered promises and unspoken lies. In the dim light of twilight, the room, once a sanctuary of shared memories, had transformed into an arena for fierce truths and fraught reconciliation. Elena stood in the center of this charged space, eyes locked on her sister Marissa, the very embodiment of love twisted by obsession and manipulation. The air was heavy with unvoiced grievances. Every hard word, every secret once buried in the clutter of past betrayals, now demanded its moment of reckoning. Marissa's voice trembled with a mixture of defiance and sorrow as she declared, "You always belonged to me, Elena. I sacrificed everything to protect our family, even if that meant twisting our fate." The raw intensity in her tone was matched only by the implicit admission of her own burden, a burden too crushing for a clear dichotomy of right and wrong. Elena's heart swirled with emotional tumult. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound. But standing there, with Marissa's future laid bare in the charged silence between them, Elena felt an unexpected strength begin to unfurl within her. This was no longer just about inheritance or the division of a tarnished family name. It was a matter of reclaiming her very identity, a journey from a place of devastation to the first glimmers of self-redemption. The confrontation unfurled with the power of a crescendo. Elena's voice, steadier than she felt, echoed, "I have spent too long accepting the roles that were forced upon me. I must decide whether to be a prisoner of what once was or to embrace who I truly am. I am not defined solely by our past or our lineage." Every word reverberated through the space, a declaration of autonomy that startled both sisters. As the final layers of deception were laid bare, the discussion shifted from past transgressions to the irreversible consequences that had irrevocably damaged the family's legacy. In one corner of the room, old ledgers and documents, a morbid record of embezzled funds and manipulated trust, lay as silent witnesses to the firestorm of truth. Their significance was clear, a reckoning that extended beyond personal vendettas and into the very heart of the family's tarnished reputation. The division of assets, once a symbol of unity, had become a stark reminder of greed interwoven with a sisterly bond twisted beyond repair. Marissa's eyes, a mirror of pain and regret, glistened as she confessed, "I never intended to chain you to a destiny that wasn't yours, Elena. I merely believed that without my guidance, our legacy would crumble. But in doing so, I lost sight of your worth, of your rightful freedom." Her voice cracked with the weight of long-held separations and flawed motivations. In that hesitant admission, the forbidden nature of their bond was laid bare. A love that defied the conventions of family and society. A love now mired in the consequences of ambition and miscalculation. In the midst of the volatile dialogue, Elena felt an unusual compulsion to extend an olive branch, a final bittersweet embrace that would forever temper the memory of what they once shared. Their arms met in a hesitant clasp, each reluctant to let go, yet unable to keep holding on to what had become a source of both comfort and undying sorrow. The embrace was a silent promise of forgiveness and an acknowledgement of pain, transcending the magnitude of the previous betrayal. It resonated with both the regret of lost days and the tentative hope for a future reborn. Standing together in that charged moment, Elena's inner journey unfolded in quiet resolve. She grappled with every shard of heartache as she surrendered to the truth that her identity was not tethered solely to her sister's manipulations, nor was it defined by a blood-bound love that had given her both strength and devastation. In the silent dialogue of their linked hearts, a promise emerged, a promise that Elena would forge a life grounded in her own worth, untangled from the legacy of deceit that once so powerfully confined her spirit. The room, now illuminated by the waning daylight and the gentle glow of acceptance, bore witness to the irreversible transformation that had taken place. The chaotic division of the family assets was no longer just an act of necessity, but a physical manifestation of the end of one chapter and the uncertain beginning of another. The well-worn ledgers and legal documents were not simply remnants of a tainted past. They were reminders that certain wounds, though unhealed, could give rise to healthier boundaries and new aspirations. The confrontation was not a moment of simple closure. It was a necessary crucible in which old identities were burned away to reveal the truth beneath. Elena's eyes scanned the documents strewn across the table, each one a testament to the high cost of ambition and the toll of unchecked emotion. With each page turned and every signature inked on terms of separation, she felt herself slowly disentangle from years of manipulation. In that quiet solitude, a new awareness blossomed. Redemption was a path that required honest reflection, the courage to admit one's faults, and the determination to rebuild what was once broken. For Marissa, the path ahead was no less arduous. Carved from a loyalty that had become a source of self-destruction, her future now lay shrouded in uncertainty and the need for personal atonement. Their unresolved love, infused with both tenderness and lingering bitterness, remained suspended in the air like fragile glass, beautiful yet tainted by the inevitability of separation. Both sisters were now bound to the repercussions of a past that could never be entirely rewritten. In the soft fading light of that day, as the echoes of their charged confrontation finally began to settle, Elena made her silent declaration. She would no longer allow the machinations of their shared past to dictate the contours of her future. She embraced the hard-earned knowledge that personal worth was an internal harvest, cultivated through resilience and compassion. With each breath, each unspoken word in that final embrace, Elena and Marissa acknowledged the truth that some loves are destined to remain bittersweet, a delicate balance of love, loss, and the promise of new beginnings. At the close of the day, amidst the scattered remnants of what once was, Elena turned away from the ruins of inherited expectations and towards a horizon that shimmered with the promise of reinvention. The legacy of shattered alliances and reformed destinies lay behind her, an indelible reminder that pain and beauty can coexist in the quiet corners of the human heart. In accepting the unresolved nature of their forbidden love, Elena took her first measured step on a journey to reclaim not just a name, but the very essence of her soul. In the aftermath of that fateful encounter, as the family's tarnished reputation slowly began to rebuild itself from the ashes of deceit, Elena understood that proper reckoning was never truly about assignment or accountability. It was about the internal metamorphosis that comes when one chooses to believe that, even in the face of the starkest betrayals, life holds the potential for rebirth. And so, in that final, solemn moment, with a melancholy smile and an embrace that was both an ending and a beginning,